know. Happy holidays, San Diego. First of all, it's the time of the year to be able to slow things down. So what in the heck are we talking about real estate stuff still?
Yeah.
I mean, we got the hats on.
Yeah, and if you have one on at home, that's terrific too.
The truth is that how well things start at the end of like Q4 is usually directly proportional to how well they lead up in 25. So we're now on the other side of what happened in November, right? And there are two leading indicators that are already getting embedded deep into the narrative that we think are going to actually make early 25 pop rather than waiting, which also brings up the other question. Hey, are the cooler months better for the sweet spot of selling, or should you wait till summer? So lots of stuff to hit on this one.
Right. And then we also have housing starts just came out, reported down. So we want to find out how that's going to affect you individually or localized housing. And also ADUs are still super hot. We've got some new ways to look at financing for those that may be applicable for just the regular guys out there.
Yeah, thank goodness. So let's do this. So first, some numbers. Here's what's interesting about these numbers. And by the way, here's what's even more interesting than the interesting. Remember, and I'll share this with you too. These are like already 60, 90 days old, right? By the time we get them. And then on top of that, those are like decisions that were made, 5-6 months ago, right? But they're the best numbers that we have. And what we can do even way downstream from these is we can look at it and say, okay, writ large, like pan back, okay? What's the overall sentiment that we can then use and put our prediction glasses on to decide if we're going to be on the right or wrong side of history moving forward? So we asked for it and it actually came. We needed inventory. Well, guess what? Countywide, we're up 10.8% right now. Inventory, not bad. Not a panacea, but not bad. We're up. That's what's important. We're also up 5.3% in median. So again, not overwhelming numbers, but better to be on the positive side than opposite. And then all change homes for sale, like all properties, we're up like almost 40%.
Wow.
So across the board. Now, here's what's interesting about that is that if you look at that, it's like, okay, cool. Things are happening. But we haven't gone down in price. So that's not giving. And then at the same time, days on market are also going up as well. So normally you have like a yin and yang type thing where it's like one's going up and the other's going down. We actually have both of them going up right now.
Yeah.
And that's curious. So any ideas or, understanding of why that might be true, what that means for us moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're seeing is almost the proverbial like kind of eclipse of the roller coaster, right? As you're approaching the top, your acceleration is chilling out. You're starting to see a little bit more of a slowing down, but you're not at the end yet. You're not dropping. You're not in a free fall.
Okay.
These are the types of numbers that we're seeing switching more to an equilibrium as opposed to dropping off a cliff.
I like that because I was going to ask the follow-up question. Okay, still, what would that mean then if that's true for a buyer? What would it mean for a seller? And like you just answered it. Like it could be like a mellowing out or a buoying of this being so seller-sided for so long.
Right.
And we're still seeing seller-sided stats, but we're finally seeing the reprisal of some buyer stuff.
It doesn't mean you have to go all the way to the other side when a change happens.
Right.
The change could just be a normalizing as opposed to a flipping. So inside some of those stats that you're talking about, one of the key indicators is inventory, right? That kind of spells our supply and demand conversation. And
which looks like it's going up.
And so that's a great opportunity for buyers because it's starting to give us more options. The other thing that buyers like to look at are new homes. And so I talked about this earlier, the idea that home builders are slowing down their starts, and starts are applications for new projects, etc. So what does that mean? Some people think that to mean, oh no, right? Like, why aren't home builders building? But there could be a number of reasons why home builders wouldn't build. Sometimes home builders are simply looking at their balance sheets, right? We've already got a lot of new starts. We're going to chill out for a little bit. The other factors I think have to do...
Which can't be the truth though right now. Just to put, because I want to, this is, if you don't understand why we always obsess about home builder stuff, it's because they are the one people in the equation that actually have their thumb on the scale, right? Jeremy, myself, retail, like we're all downstream of, all the smart guys in the room that make the big decisions. And then we're down here like, hey, I'd like to sell, or hey, I'd like to buy, or hey, I need a loan.
Right.
But home builders are actually the ones affecting market supply.
Right.
So I think you would also say it's true that if the demand was peaked, they would be firing up every hammer they could get their hands on.
Which I think they've been doing for the last couple of years, right? With
Have they, though?
super low inventory. Home builders have been
that's
trying
true.
to get into the market to say, let's get some product on the market because there's nothing else for people to buy.
The inventory piece is true. I was thinking of it. I had my horse blinders on because I was thinking about just like the economy, right? Because they've been artificially trying to tamp out the economy to curb CPI and inflation. And we're at the absolute apex right now. And they're starting to now make money cheaper. So you would think that would be the harbinger for builders to be like, let's fire up the air guns.
Right.
But we're not seeing that.
The pause is interesting. So I think people are looking at this to say, hey, what's going on?
Right.
And I think there's a lot of factors involved. Probably primarily is just the insecurity of what's happening right now. Nobody's sure what prices are going to look like for materials. Nobody's sure what labor costs are going to look like, or even if there's going to be enough people to do the labor, right? And so home builders are probably taking their foot off the gas. They're not hitting the brakes, but taking their foot off the gas to say, hey, let's see what happens here. Now, what's that going to do to inventory? That's potentially not going to contribute to more inventory, but it looks like the market's kind of doing that on its own right now. We're starting to see homes hit the market. They're staying around a little bit longer.
That's an interesting thread. That could be a non-negative thread that they're looking at all of the normal home sellers that would have normally cycled into selling their home and being on the market in the last 3 years, who strategically were on the sidelines.
Yes.
Saying to themselves, hey, 25 is my year. And then that flood of inventory coming back online, that's now pent up.
And they don't want to be competing against that.
And they don't want to be competing against that.
Right.
It's almost kind of like letting the crazy guy go by on the freeway, even though he cut you off and pissed you off. You're just like, dude, let him go. But change lanes over, let him fly by.
Yeah. And that's what home builders are doing. They're competing against existing inventory. And so as a homeowner, you have an opportunity now to think about what that's going to mean for you. Are new homes going to come on the market that are going to be competing for you as a seller? Are new homes as a buyer going to come on the market so you've got more options? Are rates going to fall so that you have more ability and more buying power? All of these things, I think, we're kind of on this crux of like, hey, what's going to happen? And everybody's having the same conversation, including, families sitting in their home saying, hey, do we make this move now?
So here's maybe a myth buster for you. Here's a way of thinking about something from the reverse perspective, right? Like, I come from a family of engineers, and it seems like I got this by proxy. Like, anytime you're problem solving, you always start with that as in the concept of the reverse engineer. So I'm gonna throw this little graphic up on the screen right now. The concept of selling when no one else is selling and have that could actually be advantageous to you, right? Just to oversimplify this and dumb it way down to my level, you think of the calendar like this classic bell curve, right? You got January here, you got December here, and you got like the middle of July sitting right in the middle. And the idea is like your milkshake bringing all the boys to the yard, right? Like, and like you want to be right there at the peak because that's when everybody's gonna. Kind of true, but not necessarily. And especially because now we're having a conversation in long form about inventory. As long as the demand is afoot, okay? And as we flip now into the 25 campaign, we've had demand all the way through these last 2 brutal fiscal years. There's still been more demand than supply. And now as we move into 25, where we might actually have the tailwind of demand starting to spike, because again, all that strategery that was sitting on the sidelines now coming to fore, you're gonna have the demand. So now it's a question of, okay, cool, I got the milkshake with the boys in the yard. Now it's like, okay, well, how many people am I competing against, right? So if your neighbor and the guy across the street and the one down the deal and this, if everybody's selling, well, now all the demand is starting to get washed out a little bit, starting to get watered down.
Get commoditized.
Getting commoditized, that's exactly right. But if I'm out there and ain't nobody else out there yet, AKA in the cooler months, not that we even really have cooler months, hang with me though, right? Then now, and you can actually see from the chart is where we start to get these sweet spots. So as you're looking through, it seems to peak down, opposite of peak up, peak down right there at about November, December, right there at about January lowest. We always lament every year that we need to go on vacation on January because no one seems to ever want to do anything. We call it the New Year's hangover, right? So this is evidenced here in this chart as well. And then finally starts to pop back up, March-ish or whatever, and then it starts to go late spring, early summer, bang, bang, bang. So in terms of you competing against other sellers, so long as you can check the box that I will have demand, check. Okay. The next gamification is how many people am I competing with, which could be a very interesting case for people getting started earlier in 25 rather than waiting till late spring, early summer.
Yeah, I love that idea. And especially when you consider the waning version of how many properties are on the market currently, right? So like now there's starting to be competition. It wasn't that long ago where you put your house for sale whenever you want. But now maybe it's important to take the waves into consideration to see where you're going to be competing, including being a buyer.
Yeah.
Like you're also not competing against as many buyers in those down moments. And that feels counterintuitive that both the seller and the buyer could be having a moment at the same time. But I think it's true statistically speaking.
I'm curious what you think, right? So here's an opportunity to be a little interactive. So if you're watching, first of all, smash a little subscribe and like, right? Little old us over here on the corner.
Yeah, you never want to miss this.
We're not allergic to a little subscribe and like. Helps out the algos and the rhythm.
Yeah, sure.
But more importantly, though, chime in with us down on the comments. Where do you stand on that? Do you feel like if you were going to go sell your home, asking for a friend, do you feel like that would actually make more sense? Or do you feel like that's leaving some meat on the bone and you'd rather wait, even if it means you got a bunch of other people you're competing with? Does the overall tide rising all the ships benefit you more? Like, which way do the two do you stand? And that's from the seller perspective. From the buyer perspective, what would you rather have? Because it's the exact opposite as a buyer, right? Like, you don't want to wait till summer because then you got a bunch of other buyers that you're competing. It's going to jack up the price. But then you're saying, hey, if I wait till summer, am I not going to have the pick that I want? Am I going to settle because there's only 3 homes that I might buy right now? But if I wait till summer, there might be 13 homes
more
that I can choose from
versus more competition.
There it is. Yeah. There it is. In inverse of each other. So curious for your feedback on that.
Yeah. So let me switch gears real quick because I want to talk about ADUs.
Okay.
This is a big topic right now. Everybody thinks it's really cool to do an ADU. So what's the alternative to moving or buying? Like what's happening are a lot of people are saying, hey, my family wants to get in. They can't afford it in San Diego. I'm going to build an ADU in my property and my kid can live there. My mom can live there, whatever that conversation is.
And dramatically increase the value of your home.
Dramatically.
That doesn't suck.
Right. Now, the challenge for most people, and again, it might be interesting to hear what you guys think, but the challenge for most people is how do I fund this? How do I finance this?
Yeah,
now,
especially if you've been hanging out for a while
and
you've got a 3 or 3.5. You don't want to touch that first.
Right, what I was going to say. A lot of people have equity, but they don't want to refinance because of the challenge of leaving their first alone.
Heck no.
The second option is a HELOC, which can be expensive. So we've got these hybrids now. One of them is financing for an ADU. It's a renovation loan. So these were originally intended to kind of do a little bit of this and that. Maybe put a new roof on, maybe put some windows in your house.
Okay.
Maybe it's just some little upgrades. We can do the ADUs now. So imagine being able to finance entirely by yourself without going to the bank to get a construction loan, without worrying about all that stuff. You can build an ADU with your equity, essentially, and get in there, get that thing built, and then restructure the entire financing back into something that's more attractive.
Do you have to touch your first?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Depends. But yes, so a lot of programs now are available where you can essentially build the ADU. The lender knows that's what you're doing. And because that's been the problem in the past is that people will take out money and what are you going to do with it? Oh, I don't know. And now they're doing a construction project. That's actually a bit misleading for the lender. And so you have to be careful about when you're doing that. So this way it's all above board. You do the ADU, you have the financing, the contractor gets paid through the conduit of the project, just like a construction loan. And when you come out the other end, you've got financing that you can sit on or you can restructure it in the end. But what's cool about this is you don't necessarily need a big chunk of your own money to do it. And so you could get this huge benefit of having an ADU in your backyard simply using the leverage that you already have built by owning in San Diego and having this property increase over time.
And that is such a cool thing because a lot of people are bucks down right now.
Sure.
That's what happens when you have a fiscal policy like this. So you don't want to move.
Right.
Because you like your spot, you like your neighborhood, and you got that great rate on the first, but you have all of this dormant equity that's just sitting there, and that's, you know what I mean? It's like, that's your deal.
Yeah.
But you're sacrificing your today for this mythical tomorrow where you're going to have this big payday or something amazing is going to happen, right? So it's like this is sort of that hybrid best of both.
And these
Don't have to
ADUs
move.
are no joke, right? Like if you talk to a contractor, they're probably going to tell you you're at 300K, 200K up. Like they're expensive to build, just like a regular home.
Yep.
Especially when you're going foundation and up. So those numbers are not easily come by for most people, but could you benefit from having one of these things in your backyard?
Yeah.
No doubt.
No question. So, gang, first of all, thanks for hanging out with us, right? If this is your first time popping in or you check in with us on the regulars, not just for hanging out with us, our little monthly updates. If you do, you get this awesome. Thanks for letting us ramble out here and process some stuff out loud. Maybe make you sound a little cooler for your cocktail party.
Sure.
Right? You can stick your pinky out and swirl the glass. But more importantly, that you allow us to be able to, pour back into the families and the communities that we love and serve with, this gift of Jeremy.
Oh,
It's the gift of, you didn't know we were doing that? It's the
welcome.
gift of Jeremy. The fact that you allow us to share this gift of Jeremy.
you're welcome.
But truthfully, from all of our families at the Greenhouse Group, thanking you and having this opportunity to slow things down and to let this be a respite as the nights come upon us quicker and we kind of go inside and the temperatures are sort of chilly. It's an opportunity to reflect, right? Summer, sun's out, make hay. Winters, it's like, dude, grateful for everything and grateful for you for checking in and being a part of our green team.
Yeah. Focus on the family, and that often leads to conversations about the future. So hopefully we've shed a little bit of light on that.
So that said well. So gang, have a great Christmas, New Year, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. What else is there?
I think you got it.
Just say holidays, and we'll see you on the other side of 25. Until then.